The early church, the early church followed Scripture, not traditions of man. Scripture was authoritative. Introduction. It is well known that neither Catholic nor Protestant churches obey the commands of Jesus. For example, Protestants have interpreted the Scriptures according to their liking to liberalize the teachings of divorce and remarriage. The Catholic Church likewise uses annulment. But the early church was very different. They kept to Scripture, and it was the basis for all Christian living. 2 Timothy 3:16 through 17 reads, "All Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete and thoroughly equipped for every good work." All newcomers were told to study the Scriptures. Polycarp, "I trust you are well versed in the sacred Scriptures." Justin Martyr, "Renouncing the error of your fathers, you should read the prophecies of the sacred writings. Learn from them what will give you everlasting life." Apostolic Constitutions, compiled 390. "When you stay at home, read the books of the law, the kings, the prophets, sing the hymns of David, and diligently study the gospel, which is the completion of the other works." All newcomers were told of the authority of Scripture. Irenaeus, circa 180. "We have learned the plan of our salvation from no one else other than those through whom the gospel has come down to us. For they did at one time proclaim the gospel in public, and at a later period, by the will of God, they handed the gospel down to us in the Scriptures to be the ground and pillar of our faith. Since therefore the tradition of the apostles does thus exist in the church and is permanent among us, let us revert to the scriptural proof furnished by those apostles who did also write the gospel. There will be no light punishment upon him who either adds or subtracts anything from the Scripture. In this manner I have shown it to be, if anyone reads the Scriptures. For it was in that manner that the Lord discoursed with the disciples after his resurrection from the dead, proving to them from the Scriptures themselves." Regarding the heretics, Irenaeus said, "When, however, the Gnostics are confuted from the Scriptures, they turn round and accuse these same Scriptures, as if they were not correct nor of authority. They say that they are ambiguous and that the truth cannot be extracted from them by those who are ignorant of tradition. But again, when we refer to them that tradition which originates from the apostles, they object to tradition." Clement of Alexandria, circa 195, says, "Faith will lead you, experience will teach you, Scripture will train you. I have demonstrated that the Scriptures which we believed are valid from their omnipotent authority. Those who are ready to toil in the most excellent pursuits will not desist from the search after the truth until they get the demonstration from the Scriptures themselves. We have the Lord as the source of teaching, both by the prophets, the gospel, and the blessed apostles. He then who of himself believes the Scriptures and the voice of the Lord, by which by the Lord acts to the benefit of men, is rightly regarded as faithful." The heretics go to the length of impiety by disbelieving the Scriptures. In fact, the heretics stitch together a multitude of lies and figments, so that they may appear to be acting in accordance with reason in their not accepting the Scriptures. Having grown old in the Scriptures and maintaining apostolic and ecclesiastic orthodoxy in the doctrine, the spiritual man lives most correctly in accordance with the gospel. Tertullian, circa 197, writes, "In order that we may acquire an ampler and more authoritative knowledge of himself, his counsels, and his will, God has added a written revelation for the benefit of everyone whose heart is seeking him." Origen, circa 228. "Every divine scripture is gospel. One should take his stand against historical fictions and oppose them with the true and lofty evangelical message, in which the agreement of the doctrines found in both the so-called Old Testament and so-called New appears so close, so clearly and completely. Like Tantius, circa 304 to 313. We who the Holy Scriptures instruct to the knowledge of the truth know the beginning and end of the world. Conclusions. The apostles diligently wrote down Jesus' words for us to follow. The early church relied on totality of Scripture in both Old and New. The apostolic tradition is following what was written down for us. Scripture is authority even today. Irenaeus tells us the plan of salvation was written down for us by those who preached it. By the will of God, they handed the gospel down to us in the Scriptures to be grounded and pillar of our faith. What this means for us is this. We should not have to rely on anyone to interpret the Scriptures for us. We need to study the Scriptures for ourselves and keep Jesus' word. Without knowing and doing what Jesus taught, we cannot be of help to anyone. We cannot save anyone. In fact, we are at risk ourselves by walking to destruction, being deceived by other gospels teaching traditions of man. Most mainline denominations do not obey Jesus. They walk the broad road of destruction. Heresy will lead to destruction. Scripture is authority, not traditions of man.